Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Right? How you doing? It's Adam Godin, and I wanted to make a video about the Pope. It's what everyone's talking about. The Pope, 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 Pope. Pope. And I just want to do a brief video on the history of the papacy, and also get into an astrological lens of the new Pope and the astrological blend that's going to come within the next year. So stay tuned. If you're bored about the history, just fast forward about halfway through. We can get into the Pope. But I just want to get the brief history of the Pope. Anyway, so where did it start? The word Pope comes from Papa, meaning father. According to tradition, the first Pope was Saint Peter, one of Jesus' apostles. The story goes that Jesus gave Peter the keys to the church, saying, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Peter was eventually martyred in Rome, and every pope since is said to inherit his spiritual authority. Okay, so in early struggles, early popes were not living in luxury. They were constantly in paranoia of being killed. They operated during the brutal persecution of Christians by the Roman Empire. Many were imprisoned, exiled, executed. It wasn't until the early 4th century, when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity, that the Pope's position started to gain some real influence. Now, the rise to power. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and the Pope wasn't just a religious leader, and he was a political force. Popes crowned emperors, controlled kings, and even called for the Crusades. Pope Leo I in the 5th century basically declared the Pope the most powerful bishop in Christianity, a title that stuck. And interesting that we have Leo the 14th now. I guess there's been 14 Leos since, the whole lot of Leos. Anyway, power attracts corruption. We all know that. So the papacy has had scandals, of course, nepotism, political backstabbing, and even a few popes have led their armies into battle. So that's one thing to consider. These popes were pretty badass, and popes were not always these good old guys, right? I'm just kidding. Anyway, so the Avignon era in the Western Schism between 1809 and 1837, or excuse me, 1377, 1309 to 1377, popes actually lived in Avignon, France, not Rome. This weakened the church's authority and led to the Western Schism, where multiple people claimed to be the real pope at the same time. And as you can imagine, that was absolute chaos, okay? So, modernization and reformation. By the Renaissance, some popes were more interested in art and politics than theology. Martin Luther kicked off the Protestant Reformation in 1517, splitting Christianity and challenging papal authority. Now we go to the modern era. In 1870, Pope Pius IX declared that the Pope is infallible when speaking on official church doctrine. A bold move as European monarchies were falling. Pope John the 23rd brought huge changes in the 60s with Vatican II, modernizing the church's approach to the world. Then came John Paul II, who was a global figurehead, helped topple communism, and made history as the first Polish pope. Pope Francis, elected in 2013, was the first from the Americas and known for his progressive takes on poverty, climate, and social issues. So, how was the Pope chosen? Popes are elected by the College of Cardinals in a secret meeting called a conclave inside the Sistine Chapel. So, two-thirds majority wins. When a Pope is chosen, white smoke rises from the chapel chimney. If it's black smoke, they're still voting. So, some cool facts. There have been 266 popes, including Leo XIV. The shortest reign was 33 days, and Pope is also the head of Vatican City, the smallest country in the world. And yes, a pope can resign. The last one to do it was Benedict in 2013. So we go to a summary of what I just said, and the popehood, I guess you could say, the papacy has a long tradition in the world and is a major historical person and has been going back for about 2,000 years. And some people think, oh, why should I care about the Pope? I almost thought that for a second. Why should I care about the Pope? But he's a major historical figure, and there's so much symbolism that goes into it. So now let's recap, but with the astrological lens in mind. So the natal chart of the papacy, and we start going to the origins of the Vatican, the church. So, in astrology, the archetype of a pope embodies Jupiter energy, wisdom, moral authority, and spiritual leadership. The Catholic Church traces its authority to Saint Peter, who astrologically would embody a strong Pisces or Sagittarian placement, signs connected to faith, mysticism, and divine truth. You could say that the birth chart of the papacy started around 33 to 64 AD during Peter's leadership in Rome. Notably, Jupiter was in Cancer in 33 AD, a sign about spiritual nurturing and protection, fitting for a church that laying its roots. Anyway, the Saturnian trials, so this major Saturn influence in the early struggles of the church. The early popes endured brutal persecution during the Roman Empire. Astrologically, this was a period dominated by Saturn's restricted influence. In charts, Saturn represents trials, authority struggles, and endurance. The church's survival was a long Saturnian return story, forcing them to solidify their faith under harsh conditions. The rise to power, Jupiter and Pluto alignments. By the 4th century, when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity, we see key Jupiter Pluto conjunctions historically connected to power shifts and religion and government. Jupiter expands and Pluto transforms, a perfect symbolism for a once persecuted faith ascending to global dominance. In natal symbolism, this is like a person coming to their inheritance or birthright after a long period of suffering. Now, the Avignon era and the Western schisms, the illusions of Neptune, this occurred between 1309 and 1377, the Avignon papacy, and subsequent Western schism, where multiple popes claimed legitimacy. Multiple people claimed to be pope at the same time, where this coincided with heavy Neptune transits, the planet of illusion, deception, and spiritual confusion. So you can imagine this Neptune causing confusion with all these people, and no one knows what to believe. Not only are the people confused, but the popes are confused. The popes that are claiming to be the popes, everyone's confused. So no one really knows reality. And that's the antithesis of Neptune, reality. So in a personal chart, this would be like someone going through a Neptune transit, Neptune natal transit, losing clear identity, battling illusions, and undergoing a crisis of faith. Now, the Reformation, the Uranus and Pluto revolt, the Protestant Reformation in 1517 was fueled by rebellious Uranus Pluto squares, historically known to bring revolutions and power structures, both secular and spiritual. Martin Luther's challenge to papal authority marks a classic Uranus transit moment: upheaval, rebellion, and the collapse of old orders. In a person's chart, this would be like a Uranus opposition to a natal Saturn, suddenly realizing the rules you've lived are crumbling. Now we go to the modern era. Saturn returned in Vatican II. First Vatican Council between 1869 and 1870 declared papal infallibility during Saturn in Virgo, a time where authority figures tried to reassert control in changing times. Vatican II between 1962 and 1965 radically modernized church practices. This took place during a Saturn and Aquarius period. And I'm actually a Saturn Aquarius. This is a time, and my father's a Saturn Aquarius, believe it or not, and my son's a Saturn Aquarius. There's three lineages of Saturn Aquarius. Anyway, Saturn Aquarius is a time that challenges rigid institutions and demands progress and humanitarian ideals. In a natal chart, this is your Saturn return moment, forced reevaluation of your legacy and role in a changing world. And how was the Pope chosen? We talked about that before with the white smoke and the black smoke in the Sistine Chapel conclave. But it's interesting that new popes are most often elected during important Jupiter, Saturn, or Pluto transits, signaling moral authority, structural shifts, and long term transformation. A recent example is Pope Francis. He was elected in March 2013, right after a Pluto Uranus square, a period of upheaval in global structures. He came in as a progressive force, mirroring the Uranus energy. And just some fun facts: there have been 266 popes, including Leo the 14th. Saturn cycles of tradition and authority. I think I already gotten that. But I'm going to reiterate: shortest reign, 33 days. It's almost like a Mercury retrograde moment, where it's the same amount, or almost the same amount, where it takes to go retrograde. So the Pope is also head of Vatican City, the ultimate Saturnian institution, and popes can resign. It's rare, but Pope Benedict did in 2013. So now let's get into Pope Leo the 14th specifically, because we're all talking about Pope, 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 Pope. I hope we're still talking about the Pope, 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 because I'm making a video about the Pope, Pope, Pope. Anyway, Pope 14th, Pope Leo the 14th, named Robert Francis Prevost, on September 14th, was born in 1955 in Chicago, became the first American Pope, and May 8th, 2025. Now, the astrological context is his birth chart reveals a Virgo sun, indicating a life dedicated to service and meticulous attention to detail. He was ordained, Pope Leo the 14th was ordained in 1982 after studying theology at the Catholic Theological Union of Chicago. He served as a missionary in Peru, later becoming a bishop of Chicalo. If I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Astrological point of view, Virgo sun emphasizes service, humility, and a strong work ethic, which is what Leo the 14th will probably bring. So Jupiter and Leo suggest a natural leader with a flair for inspiring others. So that's what we're gonna get. Um, Leo 14th was appointed a bishop in 2023, elevated to cardinal by Pope Francis in 2023, also, and elected pope in 2025, taking the name Leo the 14th. Now, this astrological significance, you look at Leo the 14th's chart and you see Saturn in Scorpio. This indicates a deep transformation and a sense of responsibility in leadership roles. Pluto in Leo reflects a powerful presence and the ability to lead significant change. Now, this pope wants to emphasize peace, unity, and social justice to continue the approach of Saint Francis. Now, we look at the astrological point of view. Mercury in Libra highlights diplomacy, balance, and a focus on relationships. Mars in Cancer suggests a protective nature and a drive to care for the vulnerable. You may even say a protective nature of humanity, as this Pope may be. So we look at some transits for the next year with Pope Leo the 14th. Saturn will be transiting Pisces, may bring a focus on spiritual matters and compassion. Jupiter entering Aries could signify new initiatives and bold actions in his papacy. Pluto's movement to Aquarius, that's huge. That's huge. Potential for transformative approaches to technology and modernization within the church. So, Leo 14th life and papacy are marked by a blend of service oriented leadership and transformative leadership, as reflected in both his astrological chart and the history of him altogether. So, I leave that with you. I just want to do a video on the Pope because everyone's talking about the Pope. And I really appreciate you watching. If you like it, share it, like it, drop any comment, whatever. If anyone's interested in reading, which I love to do, I do astrological readings. Message me at Godine Astro, otherwise known as Godin, God in Astro, Astro, Godinastro. Or if you want to just chat and talk about the world, that's cool too. Bye bye.